Welcome to another episode, everyone, of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am your host, Richie, here with the birthday boy, Mr. Mike Zappy, San Antonio, Texas. How you doing, boss?
Hey man, I've got an hour and 19 minutes left of 39. I'm enjoying a nice cold one. I've had a last two good days of poker. Finished second in the tournament last night, third on Sunday. So it's been good, man. I'm really looking forward to turning 40 tomorrow. I'm really embracing the moment.
That's awesome, Zap. Truly awesome. I do not have the ability to have a cold one right now as I am actually driving back home. I had to
Yeah.
switch cars with the missus, but I'm having a good day all in all. And we were in conversation and we said, you know what? We're having a great convo. Let's just go live and talk about our midnight sports thoughts. That's the title of the episode featuring Zappy and Richie. If you haven't already, please make it a point, like and subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. And we're going to get flying with a few topics tonight. We're going to hit on the free agent running back market, how it is very saturated. We're going to talk about how last year all of these guys, or a good chunk of them at any rate, got the franchise tag. Now a lot of them are going to be looking to see what their values are. Some big names on this list. We're going to be hitting on possibly one of the worst calls in recent memory in an NBA game involving the Detroit Pistons and my New York Knicks. And we're also going to hit on some of Scott Boris's clients and just hit on the landscape of some pitchers that can help a contender right now and kind of be the missing ingredient to help some teams potentially take it to the next level, or in one team's case, possibly repeat. We're going to start this up with the NBA, Zap. I want your thoughts on that call the other night when the Knicks escaped against the very lowly Detroit Pistons.
There's no room for that in the NBA. There's no room for that in the NFL. I mean, yes, I know there's a human factor aspect that goes into all this decision making. We can look at the Rams Saints NFC title game, that two blatantly missed calls. I mean, that was a foul last night. That should have been a foul. That should have been Pistons ball. That should have been Pistons victory last night. I think it was one of the worst things to happen in the game. And, to hear the coaches expressing their feelings about this, these referees need to be held accountable for this.
Well, Zap, taking it back to about, 15, 20 years ago, you're talking about a referee, Tim Donaghy, who actually did prison time for gambling on games. And I'm not insinuating that still goes on in the league. But if there was ever a league that needs their officiating to be on point more than any other one of the majors, it's got to be the NBA because of that black eye that official brought the league and the embarrassment along with it, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as you know, and as anyone who follows the show knows, I am a diehard New York Knicks fan. I am thankful that we escaped with a victory, but let's keep it a buck. When you have a team that is going nowhere other than the draft lottery as a true bottom feeder, and when you have a team that's a contender in the Eastern Conference, it's not a mystery that the team that has better playoff aspirations more times than not is going to get the benefit of a call like that. And I am not condoning it just because I'm a Knicks fan, just saying what I truly believe to be true.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those, it's like, all right, if you're going to use that aspect, then hey, Detroit, we're only helping you out to secure yourselves the number one pick, hopefully, in next year's draft. We understand you missed out on Wembanyama, but here's the next best thing, I guess. But yeah, it's just, it's really sad that it comes down to that type of play. And thankfully, it doesn't have much of an impact on the Pistons this year, whether it's their fifth or sixth win. They're not going anywhere this year. Their lottery position is going to remain the same as far as percentage to win the number one pick. Um, but the team that it impacts a lot more is the Knicks. As we know, Boston has a very, very nice lead between 1 and 2 in the Eastern Conference. But I've been saying that I think, aside from Milwaukee, the team that presents the biggest challenge to the New York Knicks, I'm sorry, to the Boston Celtics, is the New York Knicks. And when you take, and it almost seems like a call like that, a no call like that last night, sometimes boosts that team. Like, all right, we had to overcome this. We did it. We needed a little help, but cool. Let's keep things rolling. Whereas if the call would have went the other way, then we would have been hearing Tom Thibodeau possibly going off about that hey, look, both the players were trying to go for the ball, so it should have been a no call. The roles would have been changed, and where it can affect the team's mentality negatively. So that's why, to me, I think this was a bigger impact for the Knicks than it was for that of the Pistons.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only reason why, well, in addition to, I'll show a little bias because they are my team. I do recall just before the All-Star break, we were on the wrong side of a pretty bad call that cost us a game against the Houston Rockets. So I'm just going to leave that there.
I actually know which game you're talking about.
Absolutely. Like I'm not one of those guys that I nitpick and all this other stuff. I'm just going to say that the Knicks got the break that night. But I do want to speak on this. You talk about the Knicks potentially being the biggest threat to the Boston Celtics come playoff time. And I must admit that while I do like our chances in a 7-game series, that's all predicated off whether or not we are healthy. Because right now, it is still in limbo if Julius Randle is going to get season ending surgery.
Yeah, but I I asked myself this question, or at least ask yourself this question, Richie. Is the New York season an end all be all if Julius Randle is not there, as opposed to, say, a guy like Jalen Brunson? I think you guys still have a fighting chance. It just takes time to get that chemistry down, to realize, hey, cool, we're missing one of our players, but it's not our key player. Our key player is here to get the team around him and say, follow me, let's go. So that's why I think, while his season is still in limbo right now as whether he's going to have this surgery or not, I think it's one of those that, as time continues to progress, they had that little rough stretch, but something, maybe just a win like yesterday will help things continue in the right direction, because I think this Knicks team is deep. If you look at Tom Thibodeau teams from the past, whether it was with the Bulls, the Wolves, whatever, he's usually had a deep team where if you're missing your star player, you can overcome. Where if you're missing your second tier player, you're going to be fine. Look at the Bulls in 2012. They go into the playoffs, number one seed, have a nice win game one against the 76ers. Derrick Rose hurts his ankle, done for the playoffs. And then what happens? They still were competitive, but because it happened instantaneously, they couldn't win that series. But as we saw later on in Rose's career, he missed a lot of time, and they were able to adapt to it. But that's why I bring up Jalen Brunson in this situation. He's still there, and he's got the capability of more than leading this team, as we have seen that he's turned into one of the best players in the NBA. So that's why I don't think it's an end all be all if Julius Randle is in fact out for the remainder of the season. I think you guys can overcome that, and because you have the coaching to do it too, and you have a great core of players there that can help with this. So that's why I don't think it's that bad of a thing for you guys. I think you would still be competing in the playoffs and still give Boston a fighting chance.
I don't think I don't think that it's an end all be all, but I must admit that it gives us our best chance if we have Randall. OG's coming back. The thing is that when the Knicks made the deal with Detroit, brought in Burks, brought in brought in the package that the Pistons offered, they gave themselves starting quality players that are coming off the bench, and that's invaluable in terms of depth in the playoffs.
Yeah, and a guy like Bogdanovich is exactly what you want come playoff time. So that's why I think it's a good thing for you guys. I think you guys are going to be fine, man. I mean, like I said, that game yesterday, while it was an unfortunate outcome, at the end of the day, on the standings, it shows as a win. And for you guys, it allowed you guys to maintain a game and a half lead over the Philadelphia 76ers for the number four seed, and you're still only 3 games back of the Bucks for the number 3. So that's why, that does affect it. Whereas you would have been 1 game ahead of the Sixers, and we're down to what, 20 games left in the season, roughly 25, depending on which team it is. I mean,
My
it,
team, it is 24 left. 26 or 20, was it 25 or 24 for my Knicks, if I'm not mistaken. And can we both agree on one thing out east? I believe the Cleveland Cavaliers, although they are enjoying the second seed right now, I don't think that they are a true threat to the Celtics or the Knicks for that matter. I think if they got into it with the Knicks again, it would look very similar to what we saw last year.
man, like any other sport, not well, yeah, even in baseball, football, sports, basketball, it is a game of matchups. Cleveland's a good team. They just don't match up well against Boston.
They don't match up well with Boston. They don't match up well with the Knicks. And if Miami gets their head out of their ass, I don't think they match up good with them either.
That's the way I see it too. And it's like, and even a team like the Pacers, I think if the Pacers and Cavaliers had to play each other in the first round as a 2, and if the Pacers were able to land the 7th seed, I mean, I think the Pacers could come away winning that series, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that is a series. The Pacers are a team that actually would concern me if we had to square up with them, because this particular year, and even going back to other matchups in previous seasons, they are a very difficult matchup for my team, player for player. Now, granted that, as I already stated, the true measuring stick of how far these Knicks can go, I think it's going to come down to whether or not they get their whole squad together in time for the playoffs to feel each other out. Because I truly believe that if they cross paths, like similar, okay, let's take it back to last year. The Knicks won 3 out of 4 against the Celtics a year ago, but they couldn't figure out the puzzle of the Miami Heat. And, the Heat ultimately beat the Celtics in 7 hard-fought games after going up 3-0 and almost blowing the lead. So I believe that last year was a squandered opportunity for the Knicks to go to the finals. Now this year, they are a better team on paper. They are a deeper team. And the thing I like about this particular version of the Knicks is that you have multiple guys that can put up 20 a night on a given night that take the heat off of Jalen Brunson. And Jalen Brunson, while he's still balling out of his mind, is at the end of the day still a pure point guard and a true facilitator. So, one night it could be Bogdanovic coming off the bench and balling out. Hopefully Randall comes back. OG's going to be in that. Hartenstein might have a night. You have depth. That is the thing that this particular Knicks team has that last year's did it. Because last year, watching the terrible shooting, whether it was coming from R.J. Barrett, whether it was coming from Julius Randle himself, that's another thing about Julius. With the deeper roster, Julius gets a lot of pressure taken off him as well. Because if you take it even back to the pandemic season, 2020, 2021, around that time, while Randall was getting all-star accolades, I think it was a little too much to be the alpha 1A, so to speak. But with Brunson being there, a true godsend, and I really believe that the Knicks can potentially give the Celtics every bit of it. Now, Kristaps Porzingis, in my opinion, completely fills out that roster for the Celtics to where they could potentially finally get over the hump and win their first championship.
That was the best addition in the NBA, in my honest opinion, during the offseason. Porzingis has been the X factor for them. I mean, that team with him in the lineup is just something unbelievable to watch. And it's clear that they are not only the best team in the East, but the best team in the NBA. And it has a lot to do with Porzingis being in that lineup and how well he meshed with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I mean, it's unbelievable where Porzingis, everyone thought him going to Dallas was going to be a great thing, and it didn't quite work out. And we see him go here, and it's not the same. But now he found himself a home, and it's working again. So I love the signing of Porzingis for Boston.
This is the best basketball he's played since his run with the New York Knicks, and I think it's kind of poetic that that's probably going to be the series that decides who goes to the NBA Finals this year, because it's a very exciting time for the Madison Square Garden teams. And I was saying this to Idris recently, that with the Giants going through a lot of turnover and tough times right now, but with the two Garden teams having high expectations, and of course it goes without saying that the Yankees should be a top four team in the American League. It kind of reminds me of the mid 90s, post Phil Simms, post Lawrence Taylor, where the Giants were kind of going through a rough patch. But Madison Square Garden was hosting the Stanley Cup and NBA Finals in the same week. And prior to that goddamn strike, the New York Yankees were the best team in the American League. A couple of years later, it comes to fruition with a real dynasty. Truly the last dynasty MLB has seen, because although the Giants did accomplish quite a bit in odd years, they were never able to go back to back or three-peat or anything like that the Yanks did. And while on that note, we're going to flip it over to Major League Baseball. Zappy's Texas Rangers will be entering this season in a place that they've never been in their entire existence. That is, as the team with the target on their back, they are the defending World Series champions. And one particular player who was a huge key to their success last year, and he has roots with the Yankees, because we brought him up in our system, talking about Jordan Montgomery. Um, Unceremoniously traded to the St. Louis Cardinals from the Yankees for Harrison Bader, who's no longer with the club. And now, a World Series champion, but still a free agent. Do you believe that your Texas Rangers are going to lock it up with Jordan Montgomery? And I guess it's a double-sided question. What do you also think about the Bellinger thing? I know we kind of talked on it briefly the other night when I did a solo bit, but with the Scott Boras players, it could kind of be a domino effect of them taking a little less to ensure that they're playing on good teams and still making fair money, but not outrageous money.
Well, it's crazy, how baseball offseason in a span of 1 year can change dramatically. We were seeing guys like Brandon Nemo and Dansby Swanson get these 10-year contracts. Obviously we saw what Shohei got, but then we see all three or these are just the three that I could off the top of my head that I can think of, but of Scott Boris's clients can't get the money they want. And is there a market for them? Yeah, there's a market for them. But if you ask me, do I think Jordan Montgomery is one of the top 10? Do I think he's an ace? No, I don't. I think he's a phenomenal number two pitcher. Um, so if you're going to try to get ace money, it's like it's a hard one. So I think as we saw Cody Bellinger take that 3-year deal for a lot less than his camp wanted, that usually leads to the domino effect. And of course, as we're in spring training, teams are getting to see their pitching, getting to see, all right, do I really need to go out of my way to sign this guy? Reason why I bring that up is a guy like Jack Leiter. In his first start, he looked phenomenal yesterday. And is that something that is lingering in the back of the Texas Rangers organization's mind? Do we really want to go out there and pay this much money for Jordan Montgomery when we have Jack Leiter that is supposed to hit our rotation this year, that is ready? And the question is, can the Rangers sustain a season for the first part with pitchers like Andrew Heaney in there and rely specifically on your hitting? Because remember, this Texas team last year scored, I think, 23 or 24 games where they had 10 or more, won by astronomical numbers, scored 10 or more runs. I mean, their offense was unbelievable to go along with one of the best defenses in baseball. But, to have a good defense, a big reason why is you need to have good pitching at the same time. And Jordan Montgomery during the World Series run was very inspirational and against the Astros, against the D-backs. I mean, the guy pitched phenomenal in every game he pitched. Every game. And the only other guy that pitched as good was Nathan Eovaldi. So
Two
I
former New York Yankees.
two former New York Yankees, right? I want to say that yes, I think that with Scott Boras talking to the Red Sox right now, that's got a lot of light of fire under your butt. That hey, all right, let's get this going. The TV deal is officially done as of 2 days ago, and we know what the ramifications will be next year. We know what's going to happen now. Now we know what we can do with our money. You literally, and as an organization, you have guys that work 8, 10, 12 hours a day manipulating the cap to figuring out how they can make this work now that they know what they have going forward. In baseball this time, understanding the luxury, whatever the case is, they've got to sign him. Look, you said it yourself. We have the target on our backs. The Texas Rangers have never been in prime position to say they are the defending world champs, and now they're there. And you don't have your two pitchers in Max Scherzer and Jacob DeGrom till after the All-Star break, and that's with two guys that are a year older, coming off of major injuries. So, are you really going to put your season on the line with those two coming back for the second half and a playoff run? I sure as hell am not, but I would gladly put it on the line with those two and knowing that Uvalde and Montgomery are right there all day long. And Dane Dunning. Dane Dunning, I think, is going to have a phenomenal year this year. That he blew up last year, and that was his first year pitching. So yes, they have good pitching, but you have to ask yourself the question: is it sustainable to be able to go through the first half of the season without Scherzer, DeGrom, and can you really rely on those two? I think they get the deal done. I think that because Boston and Scott Boras are talking right now, that's going to light a fire. They will get it done, and I think they get it done by next Wednesday.
I think it's similar to like even when there were some rumors that Shohei might have been a Padre, not a Padre, a Giant, or, or a Red Sox, or a Blue Jay. I think it was all a bunch of bullshit to hone in and kind of distract, and play the game. I think Montgomery's going back to Texas because similar to what you said about Porzingis in the basketball segment, this is the first time that I think Montgomery feels all the love because, as I already alluded to, he loved the Yankees, but the Yankees didn't exactly love him back the right way. Now, speaking of the Yankees, while they don't necessarily on paper need to add a starter, you cannot put a price on the importance of depth because of the fact that Domingo Germán's no longer a member of your ball club. Luis Severino, no longer a member of your ball club. Big money man from last year, Carlos Rodon, is coming off a very disappointing year where he had a lot of back issues. You go out and get Marcus Stroman. Nestor Cortez, you're hoping has a bounce back year. Garrett Cole is the reigning American League Cy Young winner. But bringing in a guy like a potential Blake Snell, especially to your point about the domino effect of the money coming down to make it a little more affordable because the Yankees have substantially busted up the luxury tax threshold, even if you take it back to the arbitration with newly acquired Giancarlo Stanton. So I believe that Montgomery might be the first chip to fall. I believe also that the New York Yankees and the San Francisco Giants are the two teams most likely to sign Blake Snell. I have a funny feeling the Yankees might really surprise and snag him. But there's one other pitcher, too, here. Trevor Bauer, who was pitching at an all-star level before his career was derailed and before he kind of got railroaded. I don't think this is a guy that's going to be brought into spring training, but I could potentially see him joining in a club that is in the mix in the second half of the season.
He's all right. So to go to I'll start off with the Yankees. You guys went out this offseason and you traded for the likes of Juan Soto. And everyone, if you really watch baseball and know baseball, everyone will agree that Juan Soto and Aaron Judge are going to be arguably the greatest duo to play together. I mean, when you really
Dude,
break it down,
this has the look of the Eminem boys talking about Maris and Mantle. That kind
mentally,
it's pretty serious because
it's
while I know a lot of Yankee fans are uncomfortable because it's only a 1 year, last year of his previous contract kind of situation, I think that he and Judge are going to enjoy playing with each other so much that the Yankees are going to do exactly whatever it is they have to do to make sure that they give him a comparable deal to what Aaron Judge, the captain, got. He's probably going to make more than Judge, if we're being honest.
yeah, and so
And
that's why I bring up the point. You know, like you're gonna have a great 1-2 duo. Then you guys went out last year. You spent what was it, 185 million dollars on Scott or on Carlos Rodon. He
it
was
was a
brought in
terrible.
to be it was and he was brought in to be what, your number two pitcher, and he's still out there as your number two. But why not get, when you in baseball you need to have that 1-2 punch at pitching to be able to win in this league, to be able to win today. And if you can pair up Garrett Cole and Blake Snell together, I mean, come on, man. Let's be real here, first of all right? When you look at last year, the teams in the American League alone, we'll look at teams just in the American League East. The Baltimore Orioles scored 807 runs. The Tampa Bay Rays scored 860 runs. Boston scored 772 runs. Toronto scored 746 runs. And oh, the World Series champs, they scored 881 runs. You need pitching. You need pitching.
That is why the Yankees, because normally when people think about the Yankees, the Bronx Bombers, you always think about power, you think about living and dying with the long ball, etc. What I like about two things that have already happened in this offseason. Number one, Giancarlo Stanton reports to camp a lot leaner and a lot more dexterity is going to come with that. And I believe that it's going to benefit Stanton's game. Stanton also is primed for a bounce back year because he's not going to be under a microscope like a Judge, like a Soto, so to speak. And I actually believe that it's going to benefit Giancarlo and Anthony Rizzo the most in this lineup, not to mention that DJ LeMahieu, who is the ultimate utility man for this team, is also in a position to benefit from this. You bring in an Alex Verdugo, who is very immersed in the culture of the Yankee Red Sox rivalry and life in the American League East. And I think that it's very important because you're waiting for Jason Dominguez to heal up. He likely is going to be part of your team in the second half of the year. And you get a former multi-gold glove outfielder in that same Soto deal in the form of Trent Grisham, who is always good to come in latter innings to play defense, as well as be a threat on the base paths. So completing this team and getting a guy like a Blake Snell is potentially the difference between being a playoff wildcard team and being a World Series contender. That is
You,
what Blake Snell brings.
you know, and that's funny you say that, because 2 years ago in free agency, the Rangers, I was under the impression that we were going to go after a Marcus Simeon. I thought, all right, we'll be able to land him. I never thought that we were going to land Corey Seager. I,
Corey's
I
huge for you guys.
Oh, he was huge. That's when, all right, 2 years ago, year one, it was all about getting the hitting. Check mark done. But year two, I didn't think we were going to land Jacob DeGrom, and we landed him. He had unfortunately he got hurt at the game I was at with my son against the New York Yankees. We got to see him pitch 4 innings and a quarter, or four and a third innings. I'm sorry, and then he walks off the field. But point being is, the last 2 years in free agency, Texas has been that sleeper team that you wake up and it's like, what the hell just happened? And everything you just said right now, plus with this, Texas, you have the opportunity right now where if you bring back Jordan Montgomery, you know your pitching rotation is going to be good. Now, if you ask me, if Jordan is not budging off of his asking price and who's the better pitcher between Blake and Jordan, I'm going to say Blake, obviously, the Cy Young winner, two-time Cy Young winner. And here's why. You bring yourself a true ace into this organization. You finally allow Jacob deGrom to go down and to be that closer, the killer closer, the one that will put fear in teams' eyes. You let Scherzer come back. He could be your 3. He could be your 4. He doesn't have to come back and be your 2. If you can go out and make a splash like that in these next coming weeks before baseball starts in 23 days, I'm sorry, 23, 20, 30 days. Holy crap, birthday's tomorrow. So yeah, I think the Texas is a team to watch out for, especially with the reports that Boston is talking to Montgomery. Now, you look at Blake Snell coming into this organization, it sends a message to all of baseball. It sends a message to the American League, to Houston, who went out and got Hader, a closer to team up with Presley. They didn't need him. They had one of the better closers in Ryan Presley, but they still went out and got him because they saw one thing that the reason why they couldn't beat Texas was when it came down to the nitty gritty, the final innings. That's what let them down. And so, I think if Texas can go out there and do that, you can put yourself in a comfortable position moving forward. It's one of those teams. Blake Snell, whether it's with the Yankees, whether it's with the Red Sox, whether it's with the Giants, or whether it's with the Rangers, he can put your rotation over the top. As far as the Yankees go, he gives you the best. I'm saying that out loud. The best 1-2 combination in pitching in all of baseball. That's how good he is. You have the 2 Cy Young winners together to go along with the 2 best hitters in baseball. Or
you have 4 Cy Youngs combined if you put Snell and Cole together. Not to mention that you have a 2-time Cy Young winner and a former New York Yankee who actually pitched a no-hitter against your Texas Rangers in the former Corey Kluber upstairs evaluating talent now. And I like it. But I will say this before we move it along to football. I believe that the reason why the Giants are a legitimate risk, it goes without saying. They struck out on some of the big names in the last 2 years. Take it back a year ago. They struck out on Correa. They struck out on Judge. Arson Judge, as we know. John Heyman, shout out.
hey, they
So
struck out on Shohei.
they struck out on Shohei. They struck out on Yamamoto. They got to get Snell, but this is the thing. There's a connection there with the whole Bob Melvin situation. I still think the way it started at the top of this segment is the way it plays out. I think Montgomery goes back to his team that he helped win a World Series. I think that the New York Yankees bring in Blake Snell, and I think that Trevor Bauer is going to sit on the outside, but there will be a team in the mix right around the All-Star break, possibly August, that's going to wrap it up. Trevor Bauer has been playing, so it will be interesting to see who's the team that takes a chance on him. The reason why I completely disqualify the New York Yankees as a team that will court Trevor Bauer is because of the heat and the genuine disdain that he and Garrett Cole share for each other.
Not only that, I mean, if you're talking about, I forgot to put in my 2 cents about Bauer. Look, you said it. I mean, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball. One of the best pitchers. And, he had an unfortunate situation happen. Obviously, everything was cleared out. But the thing that still lingers in the back of my mind, and I know it lingers in the back of other people's minds, is the fact that there was a settlement involved. So, meaning something did happen. Um, I don't know which team is willing to take a chance on the publicity it's going to bring. You talk about going into New York. We're talking about the New York media, the New York media, the scariest media to deal with in all of America.
I could see
And
a team possibly in the Midwest.
I
I
was
could
going to say a team like Arizona makes a lot of sense.
see him in Arizona. I could see him in Minnesota. I could see him.
Even
Believe
with the Cubbies.
I could see him with the Cubs. I absolutely, because I ain't got news for you. I'm not going to get ahead of myself and blow through a spoiler alert, but there's a good possibility that the Chicago Cubs are going to win that division this year. Moving it along to football, this is the offseason of the no franchise tag for running backs, which is the polar opposite of last year. We saw the New York Giants slap the franchise tag on running back Saquon Barkley. This year, General Manager Joe Shane said it is not going to happen. His representatives, Saquon's representatives, are going to be meeting with the Giant brass this coming week. You got Josh Jacobs, Las Vegas Raiders, big name out there. You've got DeAndre Swift. You've got King Henry out there. This is a big, saturated running back market. Not to mention your man, Tony Pollard. And if I'm not mistaken, Zappy, isn't Zeke out there as well?
I believe Zeke, when he signed, yeah, I believe he's an available free agent.
Yeah, so you're talking about a saturated market that is already undervalued and underpaid. I'm going to start with your Dallas Cowboys looking at some potential situations here. Now, granted that just because they're not slapping the tag on Tony Pollard doesn't mean that they're not interested in bringing him back. But I believe that if I'm the Dallas Cowboys and you want to make your offense a full-faceted situation, I think you got to hit him with the two-headed monster. You bring back Tony Pollard, possibly a 3 to 4 year deal. You give Derrick Henry a 3-year deal, third-year club option. You get those two guys together, and in addition to what you guys did in the air last year, I think your offense is going to be incredibly difficult to stop. But if you have to make a choice between the two, you go out there and you get yourself the premier power back, one of the few running backs who plays like a guy from the 90s with the skill set. Obviously, talking about Derrick Henry.
Yeah, so I'll start with this. Going into the offseason, I can tell you we are going to sign a running back, but I will tell you we're not going to sign two running backs. Reason being is, yes, the salary cap did jump up to $255 million this year, which was like a $30 million increase from last year, a much higher jump than the league was expecting. And I think that's why that's also going into teams deciding to not slap the franchise tag on running backs. It's like it gives them more room to work with the cap now. Now,
You add,
as
you take away, when you extend those deals, when you add years to these things, you can manipulate it to sign other talent.
exactly, and as far as like looking at Dallas, I sit here and I say I think there's too much. Dallas needs a lot. And, if these words by Jerry Jones that I'm going to go out there, we're going to go spend the money. All right. So you're going to bring in a running back. Two guys come to mind, and one of those guys is not Tony Pollard. The two guys that come to mind are Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. Why do I say those two? Well, Saquon Barkley is the kind of running back that is very valuable in the running and passing game, which Dallas does like to utilize running backs in their passing game quite a bit. Whereas Derrick Henry, um, when I think of Tony Pollard, I think of one play that comes to mind is when he was on a jet sweep left, and all he had to do was dip his shoulder and get into the end zone, but instead he's clotheslined and stopped at the 1 inch line, and that's the reason why Pollard's not coming back, and that's the reason why a guy like Derrick Henry comes to Dallas. And then you go out and you draft the running back. Pollard had the opportunity to prove his worth, but when you're producing only 3 rushing touchdowns on the season, and I believe only one or two receiving, I mean, last year he was in the conversation of can he be that kind of running back that can get not Christian McCaffrey type money, but be in the ballpark because of what he brings in the rushing and passing game. Not so much this time around. So yeah, Derrick Henry, in my opinion, Saquon being the other one. I would prefer Derrick for 2 reasons and 2 reasons only. One, he has, with the exception of the broken leg, which was a very nasty injury, he has been very dependable. He has always been on the field. Saquon has missed a lot of time for various injuries. That worries me. And the only reason why, because when I think of Saquon, the one player that comes to mind for me is Derrick Rose. Sometimes you're a little too fast for your body. And when you see Saquon go from first to sixth gear, he looks a little too fast for his body at times. And that's why he gets himself hurt all the time. Um,
Now, I have a theory here. You know how we keep alluding to how this market is super saturated? I just thought of something off the top of my brain that you might actually agree with. You mentioned the short yardage component and the power component that a guy like Derrick Henry brings. Not to mention that he can even throw down a block if he needs to. You lost that last year when Zeke Elliott left the building, went to New England. Now, Zeke is a free agent. I got a little theory that might get laughed at, but I don't think it's that far-fetched. Zeke is at a point in his career where he can help a team on short yardage. He can always help a team when he's on the field because of his elite blocking skills, picking up linebackers, picking up threats to the quarterback. Let's say hypothetically, Saquon Barkley. I want to talk to the New York Giant fans direct, straight line right here. If, Sa-
and
if Saquon Barkley leaves the New York Giants, it's not going to be because of money, folks, because he's not going to get a ton anywhere else. But I do believe that Saquon Barkley might be prized by the Houston Texans because of the fact that they have a window to win a little sooner than my beloved New York Giants. But this is the funny caveat. If Saquon signs with the Houston Texans, I believe that Devin Singletary, who played there last year, might come to East Rutherford. And on a league minimum short-term deal, I wouldn't be shocked if he's joined by a pass catcher or possibly bringing in a DeAndre Swift. If I had the choice from a financial standpoint, I'd probably want to roll with Singletary and maybe bring in a veteran like Zeke.
Singletary, let's see. Oh, well, first, I gotta correct myself real quick. It was not against Detroit. It was against Miami. As I finished that statement, I thought I was like, wait, it was Deshaun Elliott. Deshaun Elliott is safety for the Miami Dolphins. So that was the play I'm talking about. Anyways, Devin Singletary, that's an interesting one because,
Because it's
oh man,
weird because they could essentially alternate locker rooms because I'll be honest, dude. I don't want to see Saquon go. But if he's gonna go, I want the Giants to do something smart. And that takes me to even the draft. And then I'm going to move along for my Giants and talk about some of these other running backs. I'll make it short and sweet. Giants, as you said off air to me, are in a peculiar situation because they might not be close enough on the draft board to get the top three quarterbacks, and they might be a little too high to justify drafting four through whoever. Now, you made a mention that in your belief, you think J.J. McCarthy fits Brian Dable's system to a T. If J.J. McCarthy plays himself up into striking distance of the top 10, and if the New York Giants really believe that's their guy, you don't dilly-dally. You draft him at 6 because you don't want a team like the Minnesota Vikings or the Vegas Raiders ruining that for you.
you know, it's funny you say that because
Fit him for the year. Let him mature in that regard, similar to what the Packers did with Love, similar to what the Chiefs did with Mahomes. Because if you do that, Danny Dimes is off the books, and the best case scenario is that Danny Dimes has a good year, and he could potentially be traded. Potentially, but even if bottom line is the way the provisions of that contract were written, you get out of the DJ after next year, whether he's a Pro Bowler or whether he's a shit bowler.
and you know what I think, what's going to cause the dominoes to start falling with this whole situation going into the draft with the Giants, with Commanders, with the Falcons, everything. The dominoes are going to start falling once a specific quarterback signs with a team. That quarterback is Kirk Cousins. And let me tell you, if there's a team that I believe would have a great offseason, It'd be the New England Patriots. If you go and sign Kirk Cousins, then at number three you draft Marvin Harrison.
It gives you
You,
credibility.
it gives you
Or if you don't,
credibility,
if you
and
don't, if you don't get Harrison, you go out, and you want to hear something even more wacky? Justin Jefferson's on the trade block, bro. Minnesota could rectify getting bent over by Dallas years ago and doing something like that with a New England or a team that's picking in the top two or three to get the services of the best, most talented wide receiver in today's NFL. I actually just got home, Zappy, but I'm going to sit here in the truck and finish it out with you.
but yeah, it's Justin Jefferson on the trade block. That's interesting. Um, but no, I think if Kirk Cousins goes there, I think that's where the dominoes start to fall. Then we're looking at teams like Atlanta, who's interested in Kirk Cousins. We're looking at teams like Minnesota, who's trying to trade up to number two. The Giants, who also are trying to trade up to number two. We're gonna see a lot happen. Going back to Dallas, no. The one thing I would say, the reason why also you won't see two running backs is there's too many ties right now with Dallas and Stephon Diggs. Are we finally going to see the marriage happen? Are we finally going to see the two brothers play together? I think Vegas is starting to believe that it will happen. So that's something to keep an eye on. But again, I don't care what Vegas says. I don't care what this will happen. I haven't seen us have an off season where in free agency, should I say, where it's something to rave about. Right now, going forward, I mean, hey, yeah, we're going to draft a running back. Is our consolation prize for a running back signing going to be Josh Jacobs? I won't be happy about that. Is it going to be Austin Eckler? To be honest with you, I wouldn't be happy about that either because Austin just doesn't fit our system. So for Dallas, you got to show me, man. You got to show me that this is it. You're all in. If you're really going to extend Dak and give him that 60 million per, I get you have to. The market is always reset. I get it. So I'm not one. Yeah, I don't think he deserves that. I don't think he deserves more than 55 million that Joe Burrow's getting. I don't think he deserves more than 52.5. I think he should be right at the 48.5 to 50 range. But again, in football, it's, what can you do for me? And in this case, Dak, what can you do for me? Well, Dallas, what can you do for me? I mean, to me, it's the same song. A couple years ago, we saw rookie CeeDee Lamb, we saw a healthy Michael Gallup, and we saw a great receiver in Amari Cooper. And then the excuses were, oh, well, this. And then so they go do this. They trade Amari Cooper. Lamb can explode. Well, now we need this. It's like, when's it going to stop? So if you want it to stop, you make a splash. You get Derrick Henry. You trade for Stephon. Or you try to get a Mike Evans, whatever the case may be. Because as we have learned, the cap can be manipulated to a T. I mean, Dak's going to get his extension. Oh, man. Free agency's 2 weeks away, bud.
Yeah, free agency is 2 weeks away. I'm
The
gonna hit you.
combine is this week.
I'm gonna
Oof.
hit you with some predictions that I see going down for these running backs. Josh Jacobs stays put. He's gonna be a Raider. Austin Eckler stays put. He's gonna be a Charger. Sorry, Giant fans. I don't want it to be true, but I'm just shooting from the hip. Saquon Barkley will be a Houston Texan. Derrick Henry will be a Dallas Cowboy. Ezekiel Elliott could potentially join the New York Giants with Devin Singletary, or they just roll with Gray and Singletary. I have a funny feeling Singletary, if he's replaced by Barkley, might end up with the New York Giants because let's not forget he was part of Buffalo's team, and that's the way that this works. You bring in guys that you're familiar with. I actually believe that that's the way it out. Idris is saying he thinks Eckler's gone.
I
Um,
think
that
Eckler to me, I think he's gone. I want to if he goes anywhere, I want to say yeah he returns because he tried last year, he didn't, he gave in, signed his franchise tag. they added that extra 100,000 or whatever it was that they did for all the guys. Eckler's the interesting one to me. You know, there's a team out there that I think two running backs make a lot of sense. Those two running backs are Austin Eckler and Tony Pollard. If the Chargers allowed Eckler to go to the Chiefs, or if the Chiefs were to go out and get Tony Pollard and team him up with Isaiah Pacheco, that would be scary. That'd be so scary. I think Tony Pollard is going to end up with the Chiefs. I just have this feeling the Chiefs make too much sense. Jerick McKinnon's a year older. You need someone in that backfield with Isaiah Pacheco. They've already proved that, hey, running back by committee. Pollard, I don't think he's going to get a big contract. I think
I got another Zeke destination. Just random thought in my brain. AJ Dillon's out. Potentially Zeke being the short yardage guy, helping out Aaron Jones a little.
No, because they have that rookie running back.
Zeke's gonna. I'll say that much. Zeke is gonna find a home. The reason why I think the Giants could be intriguing, or even the Commanders for that matter, the Commanders kind of have a flooded backfield too. I think the Giants make sense because it keeps him in the division.
You know where I think makes sense.
The guys,
And yeah, I think Philly. Um, Kellen Moore is the offensive coordinator now at Philly. Kellen Moore knows Zeke.
Idris is in agreement with you. Before we get out of here, we are coming up on the final 8 minutes. I believe he's LA. We know what you mean, Idris. They've been there for a minute. I think Justin Fields. First of all, if the Chicago Bears move on from Justin Fields, I think it's a mistake. But the Bears make a lot of mistakes. I think that Justin Fields will be the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers next season.
Oh, you know what I think? Here's what I think. Last year, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I picked them to go 12-5 and be a Super Bowl representative. The team still made the playoffs. They are a quarterback away from being dangerous. And if you put a guy like Justin Fields on that offense, it might do this for you. One, it's going to bring you some championships because he fits. Two, Mike Tomlin might just be drinking from the fountain of youth and decide, I'm going to have fun with this guy because he's never had a quarterback like this.
Now let me ask you, the big name on the market, potentially, if they are indeed dangling him, the Minnesota Vikings talking about Justin Jefferson. That would be some haul. That would be some freaking haul. I think
that's a trade that you use to get to New England, to get to number 3.
That's what I'm getting at, dude. Can we see a Cousins and Jefferson party in New England, giving them relevance right away because their defense is pretty good?
I mean, from a on paper standpoint, yeah, great. But let me ask you a question. What exactly did Cousins and Jefferson do in Minnesota that would excite an organization that over the last 20 years has been used to winning and are going to be looking at a guy like Kirk Cousins who didn't win in Washington, did not win in Minnesota, and then had JJ Jetta out there with him, and they still didn't win. So
to be fair, Kirk Cousins never had a defense in Washington nor Minnesota that can be provided in New England, in my opinion, because New England definitely has some elite players in terms of Christian Gonzalez as well as Matthew Judon. I actually think that if New England gets Cousins as a stopgap and you make the deal, come off that 3 pick and bring in JJ, I think the New England Patriots are all of a sudden a factor.
That is an interesting take because to get from number 12, I think it is, to number 3. I'd have to look at the point structure, but we're talking about at least 2 first-round draft picks. Now we're including
gonna do a complete makeover. You mentioned off air that you feel DeAndre Swift makes sense there. After giving it a little bit of thought, I actually tend to agree with you on that. And you talked about brothers possibly reuniting in Dallas, the Diggs brothers. I have a suspicion with Chase Young hitting the open market, and he's not going to be a 49er. He's gonna have a chance to resurrect his career somewhere.
I think Cleveland
Cleveland would make sense, but I believe I really mean this, by the way. I believe that Joey Bosa might end up in San Francisco with his brother Nick.
That'd be interesting. Hey, I like your point about New England, though. The Patriots have $77 million in cap space this year. That is the perfect amount of cap space to go out and sign a quarterback and trade
And
for a wide receiver.
You know Belichick on some level, even though he's gonna sit, relax, and coach somebody next year more than not likely 2025. He's got to be a little salty, knowing that they have all this money now, and he's not going to be coaching the team.
He can't be salty because if you won 6 titles out of 9 years, how can you be salty?
I think it's just a sign of the times. Truthfully, dude, the reason why Belichick is not there this year is not because of the coaching. It's because they wanted him to come off of that GM situation. Because let's be real, over the last 5 years, Bill Belichick could not pick his nose, let alone pick any players. His drafting was subpar. That's one thing that he never did better than the guy that he learned it all from, Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells was good at drafting. That is the big difference between those two, or even a guy like a Tom Coughlin. People forget that when Tom Coughlin was in Jacksonville on his first NFL coaching run as the main man, he was very much involved with the structuring of that team. So from the Parcells coaching tree, Belichick, while he might be the best overall coach out of Coughlin, out of Parcells, if you take it more later in Parcells' career, Sean Payton is attached to that Parcells coaching tree. Belichick might be the greatest coach of all of them, but Parcells, in my opinion, was the best in the war room.
Oh my God. As not to change the subject on you, but as you said, Sean Payton, all I thought about was, damn, that's a team to keep an eye on going after JJ McCarthy.
That is definitely a team. And that's why I'm saying if the New York Giants like this kid, they have options. You have 2 second-round picks. Now, while I don't think that McCarthy will be at the end of that, they might have to come off something even going into 2025. Now, last thing with Saquon, I want to say this. The reason why I think Xavier McKinney is more important to the New York Giants' future than Saquon Barkley is because the sad truth is running backs do not get better more times than not, unless if you're an AP or somebody, after the age of 27. Xavier McKinney is approaching his prime, and they can use the transition tag, which is a little different from your traditional franchise deal. They're going to keep one of them. And I'm not saying that Barkley's definitely gone, but the New York Giants have to offer him at least a 3-year deal, probably club option for year 3, and the guarantees have to all be in front of Saquon before that third season for Saquon to put pen to paper. So I know that the New York Giants, one thing that they take serious is faces of franchises. That has always been a big deal to them. So I do believe in that regard, Saquon has a leg up to be a Giant, not for life, but at least until he's 30.
Give him 3 year, 30, 33, 34.5 million with 16, 18 guaranteed. We'll go ahead and give him a 50% guarantee. I think he stays. If you don't give him that, he's gone. If you're offering him 11.5 million, right below the 12 million threshold of the salary or the franchise tag, um, yeah, we're not going to give you, we're not going to pay you more than the franchise tag.
I think Saquon's going to have to be close to 13 for it to happen. And if that's not the case, then the guarantee has to be a little higher.
It
But
doesn't even have to be at 13. It doesn't. The
I have
franchise tag is 12 million for him, so it's going to be under that. They were saying no team is willing to pay 12 million for their running back, so that means these guys are going to have to accept 11.5 or less.
Well, the truth is, Zappy, it's just not good business. We're coming up on the final minute. I want to give a shout out to Joseph Gallagher. Thanks for popping in here. Want to give a shout out to Mr. Nass, also of the Basement Show, our man Idris Salam. Idris, I did this impromptu because I was driving and there was a bunch of detours on the turnpikes. So did this quick with Zappy. But yeah, we're gonna be planning our next show in the very near future. Announcements to come. Zap, happy birthday, bro.
Hey, 40 years old, buddy. Holy crap.
Good night.
Good night, y'all. Oh man, 40 years old. I love it.